Ved, Pranamantra. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. In this series of explanation of the Vedas, while following the book Veda Vihangam, we covered two very important hymns, Nasadiya Sukta and Puru Sukta, in which essentially the description was about how God has created the universe and how God alone is everything. God alone has become everything. And that's pretty important because if you want to understand the universe, you need to know how this universe came into being and who is the creator of this universe. What is the relation with us? Now, the hymns that we will be taking up one after another, you'll find that there is a slight variation from what we did in the earlier two hymns. These hymns, they belong strongly to the tradition of prayers. Of course, Puru Suktam and Nasadiya Suktam too are prayers, but Agni Sukta, which we are going to cover, this is purely prayer. And you find that in the Vedas, that is four Vedas, you have literally thousands and thousands of hymns. We had described earlier how these prayers are products of the spiritual realization of the sages thousands of years ago. Now, in these prayers, you find different things. Most importantly, you find the description of the divine itself, as we found in the Puru Suktam and in Nasadiya Suktam. And sometimes you find an expression of deep love for the divine, which is very, very, very important because prayers is not only about beggarly love where you say, I want this and give me that. It's also about your love. The problem with us is that we are so ordinary as far as our spiritual journey is concerned that we don't even understand the importance of these prayers where you just, out of sheer love for the divine, that is for God, just you speak certain verses that express your deep love for God. And sometimes you find that these prayers are also for asking favors. Just a second. Which can be asking for some material benefit and for spiritual growth too. However, whatever the prayer, like even if they are asking for some material benefits, as we will see in this Agni Sukta, one thing is very clear that it's not asking like a beggar. That is, you don't say that God, you are too great and I'm too ordinary. Please bless me. No, no, not really. It's I'm your ardent devotee. And my everything belongs to you. Whatever I have has come from you. And here is my love for you. And that love is so deep and there is such oneness that where else would I go? And hence I ask. So this is actually very high state of love. And you find that in many prayers, this mentality is maintained uniformly. Now, one thing that we had mentioned when we began our talks on the Vedas that these prayers in the Vedic times were offered through yajna, in which a sacrificial fire was lit and the oblations were poured. And there used to be priests from the four different Vedas. They were known as Hota, Udgita, Advarju, and Brahma from four different Vedas. Hota was from Rgveda, Advarju from Yajuḥ Udgita from Sāma and Brahma from Atharva. And They would pour oblations in anticipation of something really wonderful, which you cannot have through ordinary means. And while pouring these oblations, the mantras ended with one of the three: Swaha, Swadha, Vosat. Swaha was when any offering was made to the gods. Swadha was to the Pitris, that is, forefathers, dead ancestors. And Vosat was used for both of them when the offering was made while standing. These are just technical details, but you should know because since we are studying the Vedas, we need to go as deep as we can. Now, sometimes these hymns, these could be recited without any yajna. For example, we mentioned while discussing Puru Sukta that you don't require a yajna. And thousands of Brahmins even today they recite Puru Suktam while taking bath or just after bath. And during worship, during pujas, it's customary to recite Puru Suktam while bathing the deity. Now, we come to this Agni Sukta, the first hymn of the Rgveda. If you ever chance to get the original copy of Rgveda, like we actually made this book very simple, this Veda Vihangam. Its collection is in such a way that you get a complete picture of the four Vedas, what they contain and what they aim at. Now in Rigveda, the first one is Agni Mide Purohitam. Very famous, very famous. And it asks for, first it describes the qualities of Agni, the god, asks for favors, and then says that I'm not asking any favor. I'm your ardent devotee. I've been coming to you every morning and evening. Now, before we proceed, let me tell you a very interesting incident from Jim Corbett's life. Jim Corbett was a famous hunter of tigers. Those of you who have read his stories would know that. Now, once he was going on a hunt for some man-eating tiger or maybe leopard. And he had two persons to assist him from his place. And when they were about to reach their destination, I don't remember the details exactly. And there was a temple, and his two assistants said, "Sir, it's very important that we visit this temple because if we do not visit this temple, our purpose will not be fulfilled." And visiting that temple meant a kind of a waste of one whole day. It was a detour and it would take one day. Now, Jim Corbett wrote very famously there, it was better to have two assistants with full confidence than to have some nagging doubt within them. What exactly happens is that we have this wonderful thing in Gita, Yoga Kshemam Vahamyam. Sri Krishna tells that he carries the provisions for his devotees. And those who are not his devotees, that means those who are not the devotees of God, how do they get their provisions? Through work. You work and you get equivalent result. But if you're a devotee, in between, that means you are not totally dependent on God. At the same time, you are not totally removed from God. In between, persons like us. For us, it's advised that you should have work and worship together. Sorry. When we say work and worship together, it means you have to perform your duties. Whatever your duty, perform it fully. And add devotion to it. Perform your daily rituals. Perform special worship. For example, let's say, like in India, we have this tradition whenever a new building is constructed. So instead of opening champagne bottles and all, as we find in the West, here we do some kind of puja. And there is this worship for the foundation laying stone. And once the building is complete, before we make an official entry into the house, we also offer prayers. Now, for a disbeliever, all these things may sound useless, worthless. But what's wrong in that if you simply go by the story of Jim Corbett? Like, you have done everything. And whatever you did, you got the equivalent result, meaning action produced result. Now, worship is also a kind of action. Worship is also a kind of karma. Prayer is also a kind of karma. Why shouldn't it produce results? Now you will say, I don't believe in all that. Well, that's your concern. But there are people who believe in that. And India has been practicing this for thousands and thousands of years. And there have always been non-believers. And there have always been people who believe these things strongly. So what's wrong in believing? What's wrong in if you offer worship? And we are ready to believe what the scientists say. We are ready to believe theories which get discarded after some years, but we are not ready to believe what the sages said and the practice that continued for tens of thousands of years. But you don't want to believe, who will force you? These things are meant for people who want to believe in God, who want to take the first steps in devotion. So, for us, best results will come when you combine work with worship. And once you are given totally to God, you surrender totally to God, then God will take care of you. Excuse me. Till then, you have to combine both work and worship. So, this Agni Sukta, here we find that prayer is offered to Agni. And Westerners translated Agni as fire. But there is difference between Agni and fire because fire is a physical entity and Agni is the spiritual entity that's behind any fire. Now, one very interesting thing about this Agni Suktam is that it is said that the greatest discovery of humankind that made the difference between us and the animals was the art of making fire, preserving it, and the power to extinguish it. Animals have none of these. Neither they can preserve the fire that is there, nor they can extinguish, nor they can create it, produce it. So naturally, Agni must have held a very high place. Like even today, you find that people are extremely scared of fire. Like when devilish forces of a society want to disturb you, they put fire to your homes. When the powerful countries want to destroy you, they drop bombs and there is fire. So fire is extremely devastating because it can be created anywhere and it can cause extensive devastation. But our power lies in taming the fire. Taming means both producing, preserving, and extinguishing it. Here, I would like to narrate something that most of you might be knowing, that we really do not know where exactly this Aryan culture, of which Hindu religion is the product, originated. Those of you who are well aware of the history of Afghanistan would know that there was a time when Afghanistan had many Hindu temples, and some of those temples were dedicated to Brahma, that is creator, Kashyap, who is considered to be one of the greatest sages, and who had many children, of whom some were the devas, the gods, and some were asuras. Actually, that makes sense. That makes sense. It so happened that the mothers of these gods, known as Adityas, and mothers of these Asuras, who were Diti, Aditi. Aditi was the mother of Aditya, and Diti was the mother of the Daityas, who came to be known as Asura. They were sisters, and their children, they did not like each other. There was some kind of power struggle. This I am quoting from the Puranic traditions. And all the other tribes, or call it by any name, they were divided amongst these two. Like some took part, so some were followers of these gods, some followers of those asuras. And although they were born of the same father, slowly they diverged. And yet, they maintained some common practices. The group that went to Iran, which later became the land of the Zoroastrians, Parsis. The Parsis are fire worshippers, Agni worshippers. Their pronunciation is pretty different from us, and but if you go through Jain Avesta, which is their sacred book, you'll find lots of things that are common between them and us. And yet, the meaning of terms kind of get completely changed for them. Dev, that is Devata, Deva, they are the devils. For us, Asuras are the devils. And yet we both are worshippers of Agni. And we both continue with fire worship, Yajna. However, the Parsis continue to be exclusive fire worshippers. And for us, Agni is just one of the many gods. Now, what exactly is the common root? How exactly we originated and how we got moved away. This one party going towards Iran, another coming towards India. Now, there are many theories, historians talk differently. We are not much interested in that. I am talking only about the spiritual connect that is there between the Hindus and the Parsis. If you know some Parsis, you will see that their habits are pretty similar to the Hindus. Like Hindus use sacred thread, Yagyopavit, and they also have that concept. As for this worship to Agni, it was believed that Agni was the priest of the gods. Being the priest of the gods, he was the mouthpiece of the gods. And Agni was present on this earth, so he was kind of intermediary between us and the gods. Naturally, that becomes very obvious. So, it says that those who worship Agni, they acquire prosperity because we have been Agni worshippers. Prosperity came from him. Those of you might have read the works of Yun Seng, Yun Sang, who was a Buddhist and came to India. He describes how when he came from China to India, he came across people who were fire worshippers. Of course, he did not understand the basics of this Agni Puja. He took it as fire worshipping, but this is not fire worshipping. It's pouring oblations to Agni for some other purpose. The usual practice was that once a Brahmin boy, he attained a certain age, maybe 8 years, 10 years, 11 years, he was invested with Yagyopavit, sacred thread. And it was expected that then on, throughout his life, he will perform Agnihotra Karma, which is a kind of yajna, morning and evening. And it was known as keeping the fire. It was very, very important. Like, of all the rituals for a Brahmin, maintaining that Agnihotra, that Agni was considered to be the most sacred. And they used to pour oblations in that. And whenever there was yajna, There used to be different kinds of fires. Certain fires were maintained in the home and certain were carried for yajna, etc. In the Vedas, we find around 200 hymns, 200 hymns that are addressed to Agni, which is next only to the number of hymns addressed to Indra, who is the most popular god in the Vedas. We find that Agni has many origins. Some say that the gods created Agni so that humankind may be benefited. And some say that Agni was created in the aerial waters. We have these stories in the Puranas, etc., where it's described how fire was created in the aerial waters. Agni has many epithets. Naturally, when you have 200 hymns, there will be many names. One is Jatveda. Jatveda is knower of all beings. Anyone who is born, fire knows that person or that being. He is also Vishwaveda. Vishwaveda is one who knows the entire universe. So, when you look at these qualities, you realize that Agni is not a god, but he has the qualities of God with a capital G. We mentioned it earlier. Those of you who have been listening to our talks regularly would realize that, would remember that. In general, we believe in one God who is a supreme consciousness. And every other God is kind of a mask on that infinite. Now, if it is mask on the infinite, sometimes you describe the mask, and sometimes you describe that being on whom this mask is there. And that's why in the Vedic prayers you come across both the things. One sometimes is describing the mask. So, for example, when the description is of Agni, Agni is being described variously, and sometimes you find that Agni being the mask of the Supreme Being, the infinite consciousness. The qualities goes to infinite consciousness. So when you say Vishwaveda, knower of everything, this is the quality of Supreme Consciousness, God. So this is one special characteristic of the Vedic prayers, that you don't know which one is about the mask and which one is about that on which this mask is. With that very brief introduction, we begin our hymn, Agni Mede Purohitam Yajnasya Devam Ritwijam Hotaram Ratnadhatamam. It's a very beautiful line. And as far Vedas are concerned, if you take any of these verses, they are known as mantra. And if you add an om to it, it becomes a mantra that can be repeated. But for that, some sagely person or some saint has to practice this mantra with om and realize that truth and then pass on as mantra. As far as this verse is concerned, as a prayer, is absolutely perfect because it has been given to us by the sages. But to make it a mantra that can be repeated, it needs to be realized by one more saint who can pass it on, and then the tradition continues. This is true of every mantra. Every mantra, that means every single verse that we come across in different hymns, particularly in the Rgveda. Agni Mide Purohitam. The term is Da, and the pronunciation is in between Da and La. And that's why some people pronounce it as Agni Mile, and some say Agni Mide. Pronunciation is in between Agni Milde, La, Da combined. Agni Mide Purohitam Yagyasya Devam Ritvijam Hotaram Ratna Dhatam. The priest is praying, I pray to Agni. Agni, the spiritual reality that is behind fire. What are his qualities? He is the priest of Yajna. Purohitam Yagyasya, and he is Devam, divine. He is Ritvijam, Ritvik, chief of the sacrifices, chief of the Yagya. At the same time, Hotaram, he is the Hota. As we mentioned a while ago, Hota is the priest from the Rgvedic tradition. So he is like Hota, the most important priest. But the choicest quality of Agni is kept for the last. Ratna Dhatamam. Ratna Dhatamam is receptacle of Ratna. Ratna is defined as a Ramaniya. Anything, Ramani is on which your mind dwells, anything that you like. In fact, in Sanskrit, one word for a beautiful lady is a Ramani. Ramani. Ramani means beautiful lady. And Ramana means to enjoy something. Ramaniya. Something on which your mind dwells. Ratna is a Ramaniya. Anything which appears to you as precious, it simply means that your mind dwells there. It's a Ratna. And it's a very common expression, particularly in North India. I don't know about South India. I have not interacted much. They'll say that I had a Putra Ratna. I had a Kanya Ratna. In Chandi, that Devi Mahatmya, there is Sri Ratna. So Ratna is used for all. It's an adjective to mean precious. Agni is the receptacle, the bowl. If you can imagine, think of a bowl which has the capacity to hold infinite riches. By riches, I don't mean just gold coins and diamonds and pearls, etc. Anything that you want. What? You may want knowledge, you may want success, you may want fame, you may want riches, you may want anything. They're all Ratna because your mind dwells there. You may want a good wife, you may want a good husband, you might want a good son, a good daughter, etc. They're all Ratna for you. Agni. Agni is that bowl. Agni is that bowl that holds all these riches. You just have to pray to Agni and you can get whatever Ratna you want. That's the beauty of this mantra. Here Agni is not being praised in the sense that, okay, fine, I'm praying you like this, so you give me. No. The priests who are praying this, they must have belonged to the tradition of Agni worshippers because different sages had traditions of worship to different gods. So this family must have belonged to Agni worshippers. And the way we have this Ishta Parampara in India at present times, for example, there are some who are worshippers Sri Rama, and there are again worshippers of Mahavir Hanuman, they are worshippers of Sri Krishna and Shiva and Sri Ramakrishna. Now, whatever these worshippers get for them, it's a gift from God. And since it is gift from God, they will talk like this, that, well, you are the receptacle of all the riches, Ratna Dhatamam. So for me, Sri Ramakrishna is Ratna Dhatamam. He is the receptacle of all the riches. The beauty of these Vedas, you shouldn't see these in isolation. Whoever is your Easter, whomsoever you pray to, you need to know that things that you expect from your God and the qualities that you imagine to be with your Easter, they are the same that are being described, say, in the name of Agni or Indra or others. Now, according to the commentators, this prayer is meant for overall protection. In general, the protection. Because Protection is a very important thing. You can acquire something, that does not mean that you can protect it. And heroic sons, because in earlier times it was very important for any family to maintain its culture and tradition through its progeny. So unless they had heroic sons, so a Brahmin would expect a son who would be learned, wise, and a Kshatriya would want son who would be who grow to be valorous, etc., etc. And to maintain all this supply of provisions. So first, Agni is being praised. He said that you are Yagyasya Purohita. Agni Mide, I pray to. My prayers. Id. It is used in the sense of prayer. This Purohita, one word or one meaning of Purohit is to look after, to superintend. The entire yajna is being superintended by Agni. Hence this. And when the yajna is being performed, Agni is at the center. He is at the center of all the activities. So he is being equated with the earthly priest. When a yajna is being performed, say in your home, or at a public place, there is a priest who looks after all these things. So Agni is being compared with that. And so you say Ritvijam. Ritvik is the priest who looks after the entire process of yajna. Hota, we explained that 4 kinds of priests are from the 4 traditions of the Vedas. Now, Agni is being described as Deva, divine. As I told you, that in Parsi tradition, Deva are the beings who have demonic qualities. But for us, there's a beautiful mantra, the beautiful verse in Mahabharata that describes Datta Damaitam like that. One who makes gifts. It's a God who gives you gifts. God gives you gifts. And that's why we stay blessed. But Dev is also from Diva, root Div. Div means lighted beings. They are the lighted beings. Acharya Shankar explains it differently and says that these gods, they are the beings who find light in the knowledge of Atman. The Asuras are those who find strength in their senses. Asu. Asu means prana, vitality. Excuse me. Vitality. So, in your muscles, in your senses, in your energies, you find comfort there, and the gods are those whose comfort zone is spirituality. And Div, it also means to illumine. For example, day, Divas, Sanskrit word is Divas, illumined, compared to Ratri, night when there is darkness. And the last meaning is one whose abode is in heaven. So there can be many meanings. Now, whatever the meaning, the beings that are being pointed at are the divine beings, the gods, who are also known as Aditya, who are the sons of Aditi. Aditi. They were children of sage Kashyap. But these being Puranic stories, we do not know what is the truth. They say that these beings, they performed yajnas, and because of their extreme noble activities, the good karmas that they performed, they became extremely powerful. And after their giving up of body, they continue to stay in heaven and kind of writing our destinies. Is they who provide us with riches. In Gita, we come across a verse according to which if offerings are made to these gods, because these gods, they are not really God with capital G. So they stay powerful, and once they stay powerful, in return, they keep us satisfied, fulfilled, prosperous. So Agni has all these definitions, because Agni has all these qualities. Agni illumines, is divine, etc. Most importantly, is Ratnadhatmam, receptacle of riches. He can grant anything. So here, just to remind you that this prayer doesn't say that you stop working and keep praying only to gods. No. You have to continue with your work. Along with that, you perform these yajnas too. And these performance, these worship, they augment, they augment the entire thing. And that's why the result that comes out of it is much better. And see, the respect for Agni was so huge and continues to be so huge that when cooking is done in the house of a devoted family, a Hindu family, they put something in the fire, cooking fire. Like when rice is cooked, they put the cooked rice, not the raw ones. And Hindus traditionally, they don't blow out fire. They wave their hands to blow the fire out. Now, if you go strictly by these traditions, then you cannot have birthday cakes and blowing at the candle, because blowing means making it uchist. You defile it. Agni cannot be defiled. Should not be. Agni is God. These are beliefs of a culture. These are the beliefs of a society. Depends on things change, and you can do nothing. But for a person who is religious, who follows Hindu customs, and who believes in Agni as God, will never blow at fire. When we were kids, I remember once had blown out a candle and terribly scolded. You have to wave your hand in such a way that the candle is blown out. So that's the first mantra, very beautiful mantra. And the second mantra, which talks about the importance of continuity of such worship. Agni purvebhi rishibhi idyo nutane ruta sa devang eha vakshati. May Agni, adored by ancient sages and also by the present sages, sages of the present times. So the quality of Agni is, apart from what we mentioned in the first verse, second verse is that Agni is great because he has been adored, he has been worshipped by the sages of the past, and he continues to be worshipped by the sages of the present. May he bring, may he bring the gods here. This is a very interesting verse because it explains lots of things about how we Hindus think. In Vedanta, and in general in Hindu tradition, we have a very strong tradition of testing the correctness of a statement. So, for example, if I say Agni is God, there has to be a taste of truth, because in India, every now and then somebody pops up and claims himself to be some kind of God and God-man and things like that. Similarly, you have some kind of spiritual philosophy popping up every now and then. Let's not name them, but those of you who are familiar, in my own lifetime, I've seen 2, 3 great philosophers who claim themselves to be the incarnation of Buddha and who claim to have come up with some new philosophies. And once they were dead, everything was gone. Why? Because they did not pass the test of truth. And See, any such person will have a charming personality. And any such person will be a smooth talker. In spirituality, if you have somebody who is a smooth talker, a glib talker, you must not trust that person. Number one. Number two, if his words sound clever, never trust that person. Because if you read the words of Sri Ramakrishna, if you read the words of Swami Vivekananda, you will see neither they were clever, that means their words were not clever, nor they were glib talkers. Smooth talkers under no condition, under no condition. Because they are speaking the truth. The spiritual dolls with which you have been playing all your life will tend to break down. And these will bring tears to your eyes. They cannot make you smile. Anybody who says everything is all right, oh no, it's all right. Something is wrong with such persons. So India has this problem that every now and then we have some pop gurus coming up and we have some pop spirituality coming up and things like that. And these people are so good at talking and they are so good at flaming your egos, fanning your egos. You feel good because nobody is trying to tell you what's correct. And why they do it, God knows. Sometimes they have some hidden agenda. Sometimes they just want popularity. This problem is there. And once they are gone, their personality is gone. And because their personality is gone, the charm that was created by such personalities is gone. And the entire thing collapses. No, three. Why three? No, so two. I think I have seen more than 3 or 4 persons who were kind of considered divine beings, God, in their lifetime. And once they were gone, it was all finished. So what we Hindus say that there has to be a test of truth. And in very simple terms, says Shruti, Yukti, Anubhuti. Shruti is there has to be a tradition. Yukti, it has to be logical. Anubhuti, you must be able to realize it directly. Somebody comes and says he's the prophet. I should be able to see you as prophet. To give you an example, Sri Ramakrishna told Narendranath, later Swami Vivekananda, that he who was Rama, he who was Krishna, came as Ramakrishna, that's him. And Swami Vivekananda realized it directly. And there are many instances in the life of Swami Vivekananda when he wanted to test if Sri Ramakrishna was indeed God. And every time found that it was 100% true. Now, it was not only Swami Vivekananda, because if it was only one person, then you can say that, well, Swami Vivekananda wanted to promote his guru or project Sri Ramakrishna as God. But no, there were many people, many. Like we had Vijay Krishna Goswami ji, who saw Sri Ramakrishna in Dhaka. Now, there was something impossible, seeing Sri Ramakrishna. Because Sri Ramakrishna was at that time in Kolkata and pretty ill. Hridayaram, he saw him at Kamarpukur. And Sri Ramakrishna was not able to move in those days. There are many such stories. So it's not one, not two. In fact, one ultimate test of being an incarnation is that he can appear in front of many physically. Physically. If you touch him, if you press his body, you'll feel that he's physically present. He'll talk to you. You know, this famous resurrection of Jesus Christ. And there's so much of controversy concerning the resurrection of Jesus Christ. For us Hindus, it's a non-issue. In fact, resurrection of Jesus proves that he's God, because many saw him even after death, talked to him, touched him, etc. So I should be able to see that you are the prophet. Now somebody in some religion gets up and says that he is the prophet or whatever prophet. Am I going to believe? Why should I believe you? It's your word. And my word is that I don't accept you. Now what? Then swords will come out. Now that's not how religious issues are settled. Hindus have worked it out long ago. It says Shruti, Yukti, Anubhuti. It should be logical and it should be based on my own realization. And there has to be a tradition of it. In Christianity, you'll see they had a long tradition of the prophets. So when Jesus stood up and said that he is the prophet, there was no problem because there is a tradition and it's logical. And his chosen disciples saw him, knew him to be God, and they sacrificed their own life. Shruti, Yukti, Anubhuti. Now, those of you who have been listening to these talks, if you can remember just these three things, Shruti, Yukti, Anubhuti, tradition, being logical, and your own realization. The problem with most of us is that we are so emotional that we come across something and we start jumping about it and say, oh, wonderful. Oh, he is God incarnate. Oh, he is the greatest speaker. He is the greatest orator. He is the greatest saint alive. Things like that. Now, stupid people will only have stupid gurus. As the chela, so the guru. Agni is being extolled here. He is being praised here as being somebody who has a very strong tradition behind him and says, ancient sages worshipped Agni and the sages of the present times too worship. So when we were young, there was this some goddess, Santosi Mata. Overnight she became a senses. We had never heard of Santosi Mata earlier. There might be some mention, but I have not come across in Santosi Mata in any of these books. And overnight there were temples and Santosi Mata. The movies created it. And after some time the fad died out. Because God, see, India is really a strange land where movies can create a God. And now with YouTube and everything, you have these saints popping up everywhere. This is not how things are done. Shruti, Yukti, Anubhuti. Agni Purve Bhi Rishi Bhi Idhyo. Agni has been prayed to by the ancient sages and by the present ones too. Remember, tradition is very important in any religion. Very important. So, just, to mention, just a casual mention of Akbar, who started Deen-e-Ilahi, and he took certain things, some elements from Hindu religion and some from Islam, and wanted to start Deen-e-Ilahi. There is a very famous saying that once Akbar and Man Singh, who was one of the commanders, they were on way to Afghanistan and to quell one of the uprisings, and Akbar wanted Man Singh to convert to Deen-e-Ilahi, and Man Singh had famously said, look, I believe in Hindu religion and I believe in Islam. You want me to convert to Islam, I will convert. But don't ever talk to me about something in which I don't believe, that is Deen-e-Ilahi. For a commander to speak like this to an emperor, pretty difficult. But when it comes to religion, people can be courageous. Man Singh was. And Deen-e-Ilahi collapsed. Akbar died and it collapsed. Now, when you want to perform a yajna, we have the mention of yajnas where famous is in Valmiki Ramayana when King Dasratha wanted son for himself. It was said that the yajna has to be perfect. The procedure has to be perfect. And the priest has to be perfect. Only then the gods will come. So you may worship, but gods may not come. You may worship, but God may not appear for you. As far as yajnas are concerned, first is that divine beings have to come to attend it. If the divine beings, that is the gods, they do not come to attend it, your yajna will not really be successful. It will be just an ordinary karma. And the priest who is performing it, he has to be perfect. He has to be pure. So for the yajna of King Dasratha, Rishyasringa was a great sage, married, but a great sage. He was asked to come and conduct the entire yajna. Correctness of mantras is a very important thing. The pronunciation of the mantras. Now, in the present times, we have nearly forgotten how these mantras were pronounced. For example, just now we mentioned Agni Mide. It's in between da and la. So these pronunciation are gone. They say that unless you can pronounce the mantras correctly, they'll not give you results. And lastly, the performance has to be strictly according to the scriptures. When you have these four things, only then a yajna will give you instant result. Otherwise, they will be like any sacred work because there's nothing wrong with it. And they will give you result, they will produce result, but may not be of that highest order. So, well, our time is up, and we'll take up the remaining verses in the next talk and we'll complete it in the next talk. Thank you so much. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.